There was a calm schoolboy named Onoda in a region of Japan who cherished solitude. He had no friends because of his temperament. Onoda has always had a passion for anime, and was willing to go great distances on his old bicycle to visit Akihabara. He continued to ride the bicycle to school as an adult, despite the fact that it was distant from any populated areas, and was situated on a hill. Onoda made the decision to join the anime club on the first day of his school career, but unhappily, the group had collapsed due to a shortage of participants. Onoda needs to recruit at least 5 people for the club in order to be allowed to revive and join it. The fact that he didn't even have a friend made it appear challenging for him. The following day, a young man named Imizumi appeared. He was an excellent bicycle racer. Prior to joining the bicycle club, he attempted to test his ability on a hilly road near his school. Unexpectedly, he came across a note promoting a man who could easily climb hills on his old bicycle. Imizumi was astounded and interested in this person's skills. On the hill behind the school, Imizumi challenged Onoda to a bicycle race after locating him. At the same time, a woman by the name of Kanzaki repeatedly looked at the advertisement and concluded that Onoda had the potential to become a pro cyclist. Kanzaki, a bicycle shop owner's daughter, was fascinated with bicycles because of her father. She had honed the capacity to assess a person's cycling prowess through her experience with bicycles and cyclists. Kanzaki suggested a wager in order to persuade Onoda to accept the challenge. Imizumi would have to sign up for the anime club with Onoda if he lost. Imizumi enthusiastically accepted the wager. When race day finally arrived, Kanzaki also attended the game. The 5-kilometer course had a 2-kilometer hilly section leading to the school. Onoda was instructed to go first by Imizumi, with the intention of catching up to him after 15 minutes. Onoda enthusiastically pedaled his bicycle at a rate that rivaled that of a motorbike. He started his ascent to the school. Imizumi began to pedal his bicycle 15 minutes later, going even faster than Onoda. Kanzaki joined Imizumi in pursuing Onoda in a taxi, because she didn't want to fall behind. Onoda continued pedaling cheerfully in another place. Imizumi was present when he heard the sound of a bicycle rushing up behind him. Onoda was easily passed by Imizumi. Onoda was unfortunately forced to stop when his seat broke. While in the taxi, Kanzaki noticed Onoda's plight, and made an effort to fix the bicycle. Onoda eventually managed to carry on. Imizumi waited for Onoda, realizing that Onoda was adopting a unique cycling maneuver known as the hike and dash, which took advantage of the cyclist's rapid pedaling, and demonstrated that Onoda's riding skill was better to most. Even though Onoda was not far behind, Imizumi grew more focused on winning the race, and made every attempt to close the distance. Even though Onoda persisted in trying, Imizumi ultimately crossed the finish line first, followed closely by Onoda. Imizumi extended an invitation to Onoda to join the bicycle club, after spotting his potential. Despite not yet realizing it, Imizumi wanted a buddy more than merely a club. A few days later, Onoda made his normal trip to Akihabara, with the intention of purchasing his preferred anime comic and figurine. He met a boy by the name of Naruko at the parking garage. Onoda was initially dubious, but then he understood that Naruko liked his bike. Onoda was pleased by Naruko's comment and grinned innocently. Onoda noticed an odd sound coming from behind the following morning, as he was walking to school. It turned out to be the sound of his school's bicycle club practicing. The club's core members were Makishima, Tadakoro, and Kinju. Onoda saw the club for the first time, and his heart began to beat quickly. Even more shocking was the fact that Naruko, the boy he had previously met, was a student there as well. Naruko informed Onoda that he will join the cycling club in an upbeat and direct manner. Onoda was able to meet new people and make friends because of cycling. He was inspired to keep riding his bike alongside them. The time had arrived to bring in new club members. Kinju recorded the attendance of individuals who had signed up. Naruko introduced himself despite being late, and Onoda did the same. They introduced themselves to the new members after joining the club. A 60-kilometer race with various terrain, including straight and uphill sections, would be the new members' selection exam. The primary participants in the test would make up the future cycling squad. Everyone, including Onoda with his vintage bicycle, hurried to get ready. First-year students were taking part, and seniors were observing and judging from vehicles behind the motorcyclists. Finally, the whistle sounded, but Kinju stopped Onoda. Onoda wouldn't be able to keep up with the others on his old bicycle, according to Kinju, who stated this. Unexpectedly, a car pulled up with a bicycle that was suitable for the race. Kanzaki was in the car with her dad. Onoda was given a legitimate racing bicycle to use for the test. The sprinter Naruko dominated the straightaway. With his new bike, Onoda began the race. He rapidly passed the last slot, then passed the other first-year students one by one. Onoda didn't slow down at all. It was as if he had endless endurance. His busier passengers in the car saw this. Makishima saw that Onoda and Imizumi were separated by a wide margin, making it all but impossible for Onoda to catch up, unless he picked up the pace. After hearing this, Kinju went up to Onoda and suggested that he pick up the pace if he wanted to catch up with Imizumi and Naruko. Onoda accepted without hesitation and accelerated his pedaling. The seniors came to the realization that Onoda was an expert in uphill tracks or a climber type at that precise moment. The leaders, Imizumi and Naruko, sensed a shadow chasing after them. Onoda had caught up with the two of them. As they had realized, Onoda was overjoyed to meet them and was determined to win. Imizumi and Naruko pedaled their bikes more enthusiastically. Naruko started to slow down after a few corners. He didn't appear to be a strong sprinter on the hilly track. Onoda was asked to abandon him and give it his all. After learning this, Onoda was inspired to use all of his skills to catch up to Imizumi. As Imizumi and Onoda pursued each other up the hill, the race got quite intense. When the numbers were nearly equal, Onoda used his talent to pedal more quickly. Unexpectedly, Onoda had previously cycled with Naruko and had picked up the skill from him. This made the conflict much more intense. They reached the final corner before the hilltop finish line in the end. On the uphill track, Onoda's tenacity allowed him to take first place. There was still a downhill portion of the course, so the race wasn't done yet. Even after using all of his might, Onoda was unable to go on. He ultimately failed to complete the race. The seniors were deeply moved by his struggle despite this. They had been taught the meaning of competition, unrelenting battle, and racing by Onoda. The following day, Kinju transferred control of the first grade to Imizumi. Onoda resumed his custom of going to lessons as normal. However, frustrated by his failure, Naruko chose not to attend school. The key participants in the selection for the National Bicycle Racing Championship were being prepared that night by the seniors. They intended to sign up a few first graders depending on their performance in the previous match. The problem was that the first graders' aptitude was still below championship levels. As a result, Kinju decided to provide certain of them with special instruction. 3 first graders, Naruko, Imizumi, and Onoda, were chosen for training. Based on their skills, a senior was given to each of them. Tadakoro trained Naruko as a sprinter, Kinju trained Imizumi, and Makishima trained Onoda. After some time, a bond of friendship between the seniors and first graders started to form. 5 people made up one team's overall membership at first. Imizumi and Naruko were the first 2 students that Kinju had in mind for the group. He did, however, decide to add Onoda as the 6th member, after realizing his extraordinary potential. The national selection exam date was drawing near. Onoda was anxious because he was taking part in an official championship for the first time. Observing his nervousness, the captain made an effort to calm him down by stressing that cycling is a team sport and that each participant must assist the others. All of the members' confidence was increased by this assurance. The day of the test finally arrived. Each athlete departed with their respective team. They were going to travel an 80-kilometer route. It had a 50-kilometer straight course, a 25-kilometer mountain climb course, and then 5 downhill kilometers, leading to a dash to the finish line. Everyone started pedaling their bicycles with determination and cooperation as the race began. All of the teams got their motorcycles ready to race once the competition got underway. Initially, the track was straight and ideal for sprinters. Senior sprinter Tadakoro accelerated the speed of his bike. Naruko was tasked with leading or guiding his crew to the end of the straight track. This presented a significant challenge because the lead rider had to overcome the wind's resistance in order for the team as a whole to save energy. Naruko was given this responsibility until the finish of the straight track. While other teams rotated their sprinters, Onoda put forth a lot of effort, while Naruko gave his job his all. Finally, Naruko was successful in guiding his group to the finish line of the sprint course. The hilly portion of the following track was ahead. Kinju instructed Onoda with quickening the pace till they reached the uphill course, while Makishima was given the responsibility of leading the squad. His task was to assist Imizumi in climbing the slope, so that he could race to the finish line. Onoda was anxious when he heard this because of the large duty he was carrying. Sadly, the squad had a setback. The entire team became aware that Onoda was missing a few minutes later. Onoda was caught up in an accident that occurred behind them and resulted in several cyclists falling. He was told by an officer that he was currently in last place in the race. Onoda's work was taken over by Makishima. After the other team members learned of the situation, he started to pull the team, but it wasn't as easy as he had thought. The opposition squad struggled mightily in their endeavor to block Makishima. Onoda was at the rear of the line as a result of the significant increase in the distance to the last place. He took on the duty to help his squad anyway, refusing to give up. Onoda's dedication impressed Kanzaki, who recognized his resolve and gave him his full backing. Onoda eventually caught up with the last group and passed them. Onoda's teammates were still being mobbed by rivals in another section of the race. One of the racers from the opposing side noticed an opening and started to sprint up the slope. Onoda's squad attempted to pursue him, but they were obstructed, placing them in a challenging circumstance. Onoda, who was still in last place, fought to pass the competitors in front of him one by one. No one among their opponents thought that Onoda would catch up to him anytime soon, but Makishima had a feeling of it. On the other hand, the rest of the crew remained confident in Onoda's ability. Onoda, however, kept up his tireless cycling pace and gradually closed the distance to the front group. He eventually made it to his teammates. The second stage of Kinju's strategy was launched at this time. Onoda took off at a high rate of speed, dragging Imizumi along with him. This was permitted by their adversaries, who were focused on stopping Kinju and Makishima. Together, Onoda and Imizumi succeeded in moving closer to the top spot. Onoda and Imizumi's lead rival became aware of their attempt to pass them. They were still on an uphill route, but he panicked and felt he couldn't wait anymore, so he started to sprint. Imizumi originally believed Onoda had reached his breaking point, but Onoda was adamant about keeping his vow to assist Imizumi in reaching the summit of the hill. Onoda and Imizumi overcame their rival racers by pedaling even harder. On the uphill track, Onoda took the first spot, followed by Imizumi and their rival. After successfully completing his part in the race, Onoda handed the remaining running of the race off to Imizumi. Unwilling to lose, Imizumi's adversary mustered his remaining power to catch up with Imizumi. All the onlookers had gathered at the finish line as the race continued, anticipating to see who would win. Imizumi and his opponent kept chasing each other as they made their way around the last corner in the closing seconds. Imizumi had the fortitude required to achieve victory, thanks to his tenacity and unwavering work. Imizumi was able to secure the victory thanks to the team's all-out effort. The tide had been turned by Onoda's crucial effort, and their perseverance had paid off as they qualified to represent their region in the national tournament. Subscribe for more content like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.